Hey and welcome on this YouTube channel called Uhrendantler. My name is Johannes and today we've got a special project. As you can see, it's a Mido Oceanstar, which I got from a friend called Thomas. He contacted me a few months ago, I guess, and he asked me, hey, I have a watch, it's not running or maybe it's even broken. I mean, you have already seen it. The dial is some kind of twisted or rotated. It's at least not, it should be like, you can see it here. The date is not on the 3 o'clock position where the crown is, it's somewhere else. The watch is kind of running, at least the second hand is moving, but yeah, it's hard to tell how good it is running. So, whatever. Thomas contacted me and he said he has a watch, a Mido Oceanstar, as you can see, which has some problems. And I told him, okay, so get the watch to me and I will have a look if I can repair it. And the first step, we have to have a look at the movement. And this watch is somehow special because there is no back plate or however you call it. You have to get the crystal out to get to the movement. And to get the crystal out, you need this kind of, I always think it looks like a crawl, which applies evenly pressure around the crystal, and therefore the diameter of the crystal shrinks just a tiny little bit, but it's enough to get the crystal out, and this is what we're doing here. As you can see, it's no problem. The crystal is out, and yeah, if we release it, the crystal will get to its original diameter and will expand if it's in the casing. Yeah, I mean, there is also a ring in the crystal, but that's not a big problem. It looks good, and I think we have nothing to do at the ring here. So, the movement here gets out simply by, yeah, turning it around and let it fall out. It's a bit not of a good feeling, as you can see here, and it didn't come out as I thought it would, so I had to use my tweezers here, but yeah, it went out at least, and we got it out. So I think if you're doing watchmaking, what you see here, you always think about, okay, what do I have to do to get the watch running and the movement, where's the problem? But to be honest, if you get a watch like this, the first big problem is always, how do I get it out? For this watch, it was not too bad at all because I knew how to do it. As you can see here, the crown is simply two-parted. So you have to push the crown or the stem of the crown. You have to split it to get the movement out. I did it earlier in the video, but it's just a simple two-parted stem. So let's remove the hands and then we will see why the dial is kind of loose. And I have, yeah, an idea why this is happening or why this happened. It's just because I think the dial feed is broken. That's a pretty common problem, to be honest. I've had this once in a while. And there are several solutions what you can do against that, but later in the video you will see it. Okay, so let's have a look. And yeah, right what I was thinking about. As you can see here, there should be the dial feeds, but what you can see here is nothing. And that means the dial feed is still in the movement. We will leave it in the movement for a moment and have a look later. You can also see, because of the loose dial, the hands made contact with the dial and we see some kind of traces here. That's not that good, but yeah, I think it's okay. And you know, every trace of a watch is kind of a history, so I think it's okay. So let's start. First, we start with removing the automatic part of the movement, and therefore we need to remove this big golden thing. It's called the rotor. And this is, if you move your arm, this rotor will always look for the energetic, most efficient position, if I would tell it like that, which means it will always rotate. and therefore you will get some wind into your watch. As a second part, now we are removing from the dial side the date or the day disk. It's simply the disk where the days are written on, because this watch has two functions. It will show you the date and the day. And now we will make our way into the watch. Yeah, as you can see here, it's, I guess, pretty straightforward. You will always take the screws on top of the layer you are working on. I mean, it's not that easy, but if you've made it sometimes, or if you've made it a few times, you are used to it, and therefore we are going our way more deeper into the movement. Maybe some of you already have seen it or already recognized it. This movement is a really special movement, or should I say it's not a special movement because it's really common. I'm not sure. However, it's an ETA movement, and to be honest, I really like ETA movements. ETA movements are Swiss made, and ETA is not a company which makes whole watches. It just makes movements, but really, really good movements. For example, this movement is a movement which is Chronometer certified. So you may ask yourself, okay, what does that mean? It just means it's accurate to a standard which is written down in an official document from the Swiss Chronometer, blah, blah. I don't know what it is called, but there is an official chronometer union which has some regulations. For example, I think it's a maximum of 6 seconds different between different movement positions and all those stuff. And we will try to get this movement back to chronometer standard while we are moving more into the watch. Yeah, we will see if we can do that. I mean, that's a pretty high standard, but you know, you grow with your exercises. Okay, maybe that's not the right word, but I hope you know what I mean. Okay, now as we finish the dial side, we will remove the automatic bridge. You can see it here. The automatic bridge has at least, or for those ETA movements, it has 2 reversing wheels and 2 wheels to connect with the winding mechanism of the movement itself. It's always the same. A movement is, or Swiss movements are really, really similar, and the automatic bridge is mostly just set on a typical Swiss movement. Now we will remove the balance. The balance is the most delicate part of the movement. It's really, really delicate, and therefore we are really gentle with it. So what you can see, this watch has also a seconds hand. You can see those golden lever here. If you push out the crown, it will get into contact with the balance wheel and the watch will stop running. This is, as far as I know, a feature which has been introduced by the military because it's pretty useful if you sync up your watches, that you can stop your watch, or that you can stop the watch running. Yeah. So now we remove the click. The click is also the part of the watch which will be useful for winding the mainspring. And yeah, now we are removing the pallet fork. The pallet fork is this little fork here. And now we are removing the drivetrain bridge. You will see that there are several wheels. Some will say it is called gears. I'm not sure what is right. I sometimes call it like that and sometimes like that. There are several gears. Normally they're numbered, first gear, second gear, and so on. Yeah, I'm just used to other names. For example, this is the escape wheel. And the first wheel, as far as I know, is the mainspring barrel. It's the big silver barrel wheel you can see here under this bridge, which is called the mainspring barrel bridge. I think that's pretty logic. And yeah, we remove this one, and then the last wheel, the second wheel, and the heck. This is the heck, the small lever which gets into contact with the balance wheel. So now let's take apart the last parts of the dial side. This is the keyless works. Keyless works because you don't need a key for setting time and all that stuff. In times of old pocket watches, you had to have always a key to set the time on your pocket watch. I think that's pretty useful that you don't need it, because I would most probably lose the key and that's not that good, but nevertheless. Okay, so now we've finished taking apart the movement. And as you can see, or I have not found a big problem, so I think a good cleaning will do it to get this watch running. And of course, we need to fix the problem with the dial. I think that's pretty hard. I've never done it before, but I've ordered a new tool and you will see it later. This, by the way, is the automatic works, which I already told you. The last two wheels in here are the reversing wheels, so no matter what the automatic rotor will spin, it will always contribute to rotation in the right direction to wind your mainspring. So talking about the mainspring, we are now removing the mainspring from the barrel. It's just, the lid is just pressed. You can see, so this is the mainspring barrel. And this is the arbor of the mainspring barrel arbor. And now we're getting the mainspring out. In watchmaking, there's a tool for nearly everything, I guess. So watchmakers are people who like tools, and the tools are mostly pretty expensive. But as far as I know, there are no tools to get the mainspring out, so you have to do it by your fingers. But as you can see, it works. If you have a little bit of experience, you will get it really, really easy out. Let me tell you, if you're doing it for the first time, it's pretty, or the probability that the mainspring will fly through the room is pretty high. So now we have taken everything apart. You can see it here. I tried to organize my parts in those little boxes for cleaning. I tried to mix the things not too much, because when assembling the whole movement, for me it's useful to know where the parts belong. So, and now we're getting to my beloved cleaning machine. It's an old cleaning machine from Glashütte, and it was broken, and I used a Raspberry Pi and some motors which I modified, and wrote a little Python script. I don't know if you know Python. It's pretty simple, and I think everybody can do it. Yeah, I just wrote it. You see it here when I started, and the whole cleaning machine will start. There's a big advantage because I programmed it. I can use whatever I want as a cyclist, cleaning it for 1 minute or 10 minutes or even longer. It doesn't make sense, but I could if I would. And this is how it works, and I'm pretty proud of that machine, to be honest. It's my little Frankenstein, or Frankenstein, if you would call it like that, machine, like a Comet in a video long ago told me. Yeah. So, and because I want to be 100% sure that the movement is clean, I'm also using a supersonic cleaning, or ultrasonic cleaning, not supersonic, I'm sorry, ultrasonic cleaning. Supersonic is something different. I have a simple Elmasonic ultrasonic device here. I'm using the Elma Red, which is used with a ratio of 1:9, I guess. And the big advantage of using ultrasonic is because you can clean at elevated temperatures. For my case, I think I'm using temperatures of 40 degrees for cleaning. I think you can even go higher, but it's just a thing of experience, you know. I'm just putting it in here, give it 5 to 10 minutes, sweeping, ultrasonic cleaning, and afterwards I'm just rinsing it with isopropanol. And yeah, also don't forget, not all parts get cleaned by my machines. I like my machines, but they are, how should I say, little bit rough. And for example, the balance, which you can see here, and the pallet fork are some really, really delicate parts. They have small pivots. There is a spring which is, yeah, it's as thin as a hair, or as some hairs, I guess. And yeah, I don't want to have them in my machines. They're spinning, and the temperature and the cleaning and all that stuff. So I'm just using the so-called Bergeron one dip cleaning. I'm just putting them in, let them soak for 60 seconds, and afterwards I'm using the hand blower to get rid of the excess solution, and yeah, then everything should be clean. Again, it's something which you learn when doing watchmaking. I'm a really amateur, so I don't have that much experience as really, really good watchmakers, but I have seen, okay, this one works for me, and I'm doing it like that. You can also, or you can always leave me tips in the comments. I'm really, really thankful. I want to learn, and I'm far away from being a good watchmaker. I'm just someone who tries his best. Also, the mainspring, we want to reuse the original mainspring because I think it looks good, and therefore I was also cleaning it by hand. So, next one, we are doing epilemizing. It's also called anti-spread. Looks like or listens like a complicated word, but all you are doing is you are coating two parts, the escape wheel and the pallet fork. So if they are coated with anti-spread, the oil you're using for oiling your movement will not spread. So now the whole part is coated with anti-spread. We will set them in the movement, let the movement run dry so without any oiling. And if the movement runs a few minutes dry, the anti-spread will wear off at certain contact faces, and these contact faces will get oiled, and then the oil will stay on those contact faces. Sounds complicated, but it is not. Okay, next one, the reversing wheels. We are using Lubetta here. Just put them in for a minute and let them soak in, and afterwards you take them out and then let them dry for about 50 minutes, and that's it. Yeah. So this is everything we need for preparation. Now we can continue with the assembly. This is always the, how should I say, exciting part. You can use your really, really good tools like this, the Bergeron mainspring winders. Oh, gosh, I tell you, these things are expensive as, yeah, you can think of what I wanted to say. First, you have to find the right size of your winders. I think the set of winders costs you $1,000 or even more. I don't know exactly, because most of my parts I get via eBay, I must say. There are a lot of parts you can always find, and I have to save my money, and therefore, yeah. So now you put them on or in your mainspring winder. You can see it here, and you just wind them in. And this is a really satisfying feeling, by the way. And it looks really easy, but let me tell you, if you're doing it for the first time, you will most probably mess it up. Yeah, there are several ways which this can go wrong. I nearly can't explain what everything can go wrong. You need to be gentle. Okay, this way, and then release the tension there is in the spring, and now you have to be really, really gentle to get the mainspring, or I call it the mainspring arbor, which is the part with the red dot here, out of your winder. It's really, really, really tight, and you have to be careful, because if you just pull on the lever, you will pull the mainspring out, and yeah, that's not good. It's most probably, if this happens, that the mainspring will break or will twist, and then you cannot reuse it. Okay, here it worked. And before inserting the mainspring, we have to oil parts where we don't get to if the mainspring is in. First, on the contact point, some HP 1300. Then on the barrel walls, we have to use some special grease. You have seen it here. It's just useful if it's an automatic watch, because the mainspring has to slip if it's fully wounded. And because the rotor is always moving, there will be some point when it's fully wounded, and then the mainspring needs the option to slide along the walls, and therefore you need this grease. And second, you need grease for the mainspring itself. I'm using this one, Mobius 8200. I'm just putting it on the bottom of the mainspring barrel, and then we will put the mainspring on it. Listen. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've seen this quite a few times, but it never gets old. At least for me. I'm always smiling when doing that. Okay, so now let's put the arbor back in. For this mainspring, it gets in really, really easy. Sometimes you have to push it, but it's okay. So now we have this little 3D printed device where we can get the lid back on. First, before we do that, also oil the arbor on the other side. As you can remember, we oiled the bottom, and now we oiled the top. So now let's press the lid on. This is just to get to get the pressure even on the barrel. Yeah, this looks good. And now we can continue with the drivetrain. Yeah, it's mostly straightforward, just the way backwards we did it when disassembling. Yeah, you can see the mainspring barrel, and the second hand we will insert here. Maybe I can use this time to tell you something about the watch. As you've seen, it's a Mido Oceanstar. Mido is also a Swiss company, which is, if I'm not totally wrong, it's more than 100 years old. So I guess it's a really traditional company, like Rolex or Omega, which are older, but all are also really old. And yeah, Mido, as far as I know, comes from the Spanish term yo mido, which means as much as I am measuring. So it's a pretty cool name, I guess. By the way, this is the escape wheel. It will get into contact with the Pallet Fork later, but you will see. Yeah, no matter what, the company Mido is a really, really nice watch company. I must think, no, I hadn't had a Mido so far on my bench. This is the first one, but I've seen quite a lot of them, and I really, really like them. So yeah, especially if there is an ETA movement or a Swiss movement in there, I always like it. I'm a really, really big fan of Swiss movements. I also like cycles. I've had many, many cycles on my bench, but I must be honest, I'm a big fan of Swiss movements. Just, you can see it here. You position the bridge and you don't have to wiggle along or anything. It just, everything fits, everything works. It's just the precision those parts are made. It's incredible. So Swiss made is really, really something which has this, kind of a quality measurement. So now we're gonna assemble the dial side. On the dial side, you will see me using most or pretty often those blue greases. Maybe I can tell you a little bit about the greases. For most watches, you are good with 3 different oils. The first one is the thinnest oil. It's called Mobius 9010. It's for low pressure, high velocity. Then there's a middle one. It's red. It's the HP 1300. It's for middle pressure, middle velocity. And then there's this blue grease. I would not even call it oil. It's more like of a grease. And it's for parts which have high friction contact and low velocity, like this sliding clutch here, you know? When winding your watch, there's high friction, and therefore it's good. This one is the red oil. We're using it for those contacts which have not much friction. I mean, I'm pretty sure it would be okay if you would not oil these parts, but to keep the watch as good as possibly for as long as possibly, I'm trying to oil every points that are necessary. Yeah, by the way, this is also a reason why I like ETA watches. For every ETA watch, you can find the service manuals online. And in those service manuals, there is every point you have to oil specifically mentioned. And if you start watchmaking, this is incredible, trust me. If you start watchmaking and you go to your online forum and you ask, oh, I don't know how to oil, the people will start waffling huge. And they are right, because it's a really complicated topic, and they're absolutely right if they tell you it's very complicated and you have to think about so many things. But you know, if you're a beginner, you just sometimes want a simple answer, but there is no simple answer. And if you're looking at those service manuals for those movements, it's a huge relief to have those instructions. Yeah, I don't know. By the way, if you want to start watchmaking, I just recommend you do it. If I can do it, everybody can do it. It's really as simple, and it's such a cool hobby. I don't know how you would call it. Okay, nevertheless, you can see me using the blue grease a lot here. High friction. This is the setting lever. There are different positions for the crown. There is a position for setting the time. There's a position for switching for the quick set date and the quick set day function. You will see it later and all those stuff. So we get back to the drivetrain side, and we will install the click. The click is when you wind your watch, you are winding basically your mainspring. But you can imagine if you wind the mainspring and you let your crown loose, it should unwind. And the click is for this useful because it is against the unwinding. Okay. Sometimes I'm sorry, sometimes I don't find the right words. I hope you know, or I hope you understand what I'm trying to say you. Okay, so this little spring here is, I think, the tiniest spring on the whole movement. And you can't imagine your heart rate when sitting those springs, because, I don't know, 1,000 times those springs were flying around my workshop. I don't know how many springs are here on my floor. I hope not that much, because I cleaned yesterday, but I think there would be many springs if I wouldn't clean it regularly. Okay, so we are just installing the wheels. This is the ratchet wheel for the winding mechanism. We're using a little bit HP 1300. You can see it has some kind of red color. We just try to let it get into the contact phase between barrel arbor and mainspring barrel bridge. And then we are installing the ratchet wheel on the arbor. You can see the hole is kind of rectangular. And yeah, therefore we need to position it right. I'm always using those plastic pointers. It's really handy if you're working on watches. So now everything is assembled. You see, it spins nicely. So now we're getting to the oiling part. You can see I'm doing this under the microscope. We're using also the red oil for the slower turning wheels, spinning wheels, and for the fast spinning wheels, for example, the escape wheel, it's the one at the bottom here. We're using Möbius HP 1090, and this one is pretty clear, as you can see it here. We're doing this on both sides of the watch. When the pivots are oiled, I'm always spinning the wheels at a decent velocity. It's important to not do it at a high velocity, because it's also possible that the pivots can take damage from that, because they're not used to that high amount of rotation, and therefore you always have to be gentle. Now you can see it also again when I have oiled the pivots. I'm doing some kind of slight spinning here. It's not too fast, but it will help to spread the oil at the contacts. So now, when everything is oiled, we can insert the pallet fork. This one is the pallet fork. It looks like a fork. I think its name is self-explanatory, and you have to be really, really gentle or careful when positioning that, as you can see. First of all, it's really small, and it has really small pivots. Again, I'm using the microscope here when positioning the pallet fork bridge. Don't forget, I'm just showing you the successful attempts. Often it takes me 4 or 5 attempts to position it right. I don't want to seem like I don't make mistakes. I make really, really much mistakes, or many mistakes, not much, and therefore don't let yourself Okay, now we have. Don't let yourself. I had to hold my breath, because it's sometimes really, really hard to do it. Don't let yourself carried away by things you see in videos. Just remember, we all make mistakes. Okay, so now the pallet fork is in. We can see if it works. Yeah, the pallet fork is jumping. When I say jumping, I'm just touching the pallet fork really, really slightly, like here. And if everything is correct, it will jump to the other side without a big impact. It just needs a little amount of touching to get over the point of instability and look for another position of stability. So if this is installed, we can insert the balance wheel. This is a magical moment. When a watch starts running, it's always, I don't know, it's satisfying. I don't know about you guys, what you think about it, but for me it's always something special. And yes, sometimes you have to take 2 or 3 tries to get it running, but this time it starts running immediately. And what I can see here, the amplitude looks good. And don't remember, we are letting the whole watch running dry now. So the pallet fork and the escape wheel is not oiled. While these parts are not oiled and running dry, we will use the time efficiently and oil the capstones of the balance wheel. I will show you only the top capstone, because for the bottom it's the same. First, you have to loosen the shock spring. The shock spring has a really simple job to do. It's just some kind of shock absorption. So if you hit the ground, or I don't know what you do with your watch, too hard, the spring will take care of the pivots of the balance wheel so that they don't break. And the capstones are always 2-parted, as you can see here. There's a jewel and a capstone. We are cleaning them both in a solution called Bergeron One Dip. And afterwards, if I put them in the solution, I'm putting them on this watchmaker's paper and just give it a little scrub, you know. They are like cats, they like scrubbing. Okay, I'm sorry. that's kind of a childish commentary. Okay, if they are clean and you see they're really clean, or the capstone is clean, you can oil them. You have to be really, really careful. Oh, we don't want this to happen. But the tweezer game is on point, and afterwards you can put the capstone back on, and then it's finished, and you can take it back into the balance. You have to be really, really gentle here, and it's like basketball. And then we will close the shock spring. This is also something where many things can go wrong, trust me. If you see me moving, you're thinking it's slow-mo. It is not. It's just I want to be as careful as possible. And therefore I'm doing everything really, really slow. Sometimes in those videos I'm using 2 times speed, because when I'm watching it by myself, I'm always thinking, okay, that's really, really slow and possibly boring. However, now we have oiled the capstones. Now we are removing the balance wheel again, because remember, the whole movement was running. No, not the whole movement. The escape wheel and the pallet fork was running dry. And now we are applying some special oil for the pallet fork. You have to be really, really careful here. And yeah, there it is. Can you see the small drop of oil? If it's on, just let the pallet fork jump for a few times and the oil will be on the correct position. And because everything has anti-spread on it except for the contact faces, the oil will stay on the contact faces, and that's where you want it to have. So you don't need to epilomize. I'm doing it 2 or 3 times. You can see another drop of oil and let the pallet fork jump. You don't need to epilomize, but it will keep your watch longer good, or your movement will run longer. So it increases the service intervals, if you would call it like that. So we have twice the joy of inserting the balance wheel. I mean, who says no to such a good feeling, you know? Let's see if we can get... Yes, it worked twice. This is what I'm talking about if I'm saying I love ETA movements. It's just everything works together and it's just an awesome movement. Yeah. I think I've said enough about this. So let's get back to the dial side. Yes, we have to install the hour wheel, the minute wheel, and all those stuff. This wheel is for the minute hand, so it will most likely turn once in an hour. And as you can remember, this watch has a day-date function, and therefore we have to install the mechanism for the date and the day jumping. It's a bit uncommon. I was not used to this mechanism here, but I was firstly putting the parts into its position and oil them, and then I got them back apart because I did it wrong at the first try. But that's not that bad because I already oiled them and it's good. You know, always keep in mind, if working on watches, it's pretty common if you're doing something wrong. I'm working on so many watches and I barely have a movement where I don't make mistakes and have to go a step back. It's totally normal, and yeah, it's okay for me. And I mean, it's a continuous learning curve you have, and therefore, yeah, for me, it's okay. So now we are putting back this wheel on top here is for the jumping of both day and date. So it's a really complicated wheel, but it's in position and it has some kind of a lever on top and on bottom. So I've not had this before, but I think it's the correct way I've installed it. These wheels are here are for the quick change function for day and date. You will see it later. This golden part here is for quick changing the day, and the smaller one is for quick changing the date. So now let's insert the last wheels here. There are two more, I guess, that are missing. The hour wheel and the transmission wheel, which will translate the movement of the minute wheel to the hour wheel. And I really hope I didn't mix it up, because I'm always mixing hour and minute wheel. But I think in this case it's right. Yeah. So now we will insert the date disk. You can see it here. I'm always using my tweezers with plastic at the tip, because I want to be as careful as possible to not scratch the disk and to keep it in the same condition as it arrived at my workshop. So now, I mean, you can remember the parts or maybe you can remember how I disassembled it. This spring is for a quick change of day and date, because if your watch arrives at 12 p.m., you want the day and date to change immediately and not over 1 or 2 hours. And therefore you need to build up some kind of tension and to release it at a certain time. And therefore you need those springs to keep the position steady until a certain amount of strength is reached. Tuck, you have seen it here. And then the date changes immediately. And for the day it's the same. So, and this is for the ETA movement pretty good, because day and date change at exactly the same second. There are some kind of watches where this is not the case. I mean, for Rolex and the high pricing Omegas, it's the same. But there are also some kind of other watches where this is not the case. I don't know. This Mido is also, I would say, an expensive watch. I mean, it's about $1,500. For me, that's a luxury watch. I don't know how you define it, but everything above $1,000 is for me a luxury watch. And I mean, you could say it has to have those kind of mechanisms. Have you seen it? Day and date changed immediately. And now I'm testing if everything works. And it seems like it does. Yeah. So now everything left is the automatic works, or the automatic bridge. As you can remember, we've oiled in Lubetta the reversing wheels, so we can position them. The first one, the second one. Yeah, you have to keep in mind which one belongs into which position. I'm really lucky that I'm filming this, because sometimes I'm not sure which position it belongs to. So, I mean, you can, by having a look at it, you will mostly figure out which position. But it's always useful to make pictures or have a video like me. Yeah, and these are the transmission wheels, which will translate the rotation of the reversing wheels into a rotation for the winding mechanism. So, and also this part, you know, everything where a jewel is the rubies. They're also called. These are these red or purple stones you can see here. Everywhere where a jewel is, you need to oil, basically. I mean, not everywhere. At the Pallet Fork you should not oil. It's highly recommended to not oil the Pallet Fork, but at all other positions, I guess it's good to oil it. So now we're putting the mainspring bridge on top of the movement. And again, I don't know, I like those ETA movements, you know, positioning it and it fits immediately. I just love it. It's as simple as it is, or as it gets. Okay, now let's get the rotor back on. I have cleaned the rotor as well, and I have oiled it in Lubetta. I didn't film it, I'm sorry, but the ball bearing at the rotor was oiled in Lubetta too. Yeah, therefore there was a small little hair which I removed. And now the movement is finished. I like it. It's a nice movement. I don't know if you've already heard it, but I like it. But now we have another problem. Or maybe the big problem of this watch, no? But before we get to this problem, we will have a look how the movement runs. Therefore we have our Timegrapher, and we will have a look at it. And 280 degrees of amplitude, that's great. And 2 seconds a day, 1 second a day. Wow, wow, that's really great results. I guess that's Chronometer standard. I also checked the other positions, and it was nearly the same for all 6 positions I checked. And therefore I would say that's Chronometer standard. I'm really, really lucky. And now, while I'm talking anything, you can see me how I tried to solve the problem of the broken dial feeds. I have this little tool here. It has some kind of a drill, and with this drill, I'm trying to drill a little hole where I will position dial feeds in. You can see you don't need much of a pressure. I mean, a little bit you need, and you will drill yourself into the back of the dial. And you have to be careful. This was the first time I was using this, to be honest. So I was not sure if it would work out, but this looks good. This looks really good. And now we have to have a look to get the proper dial feeds. These are the old dial feeds. I was using my measuring tools here to see what kind of dial feeds I needed. So sorry for the American viewers, this is measured in meters. So it's 0.69 millimeters. I will show you here, look. And I will have a look. I think I have those dial feeds here. Yes, you can see them here, 0.69 millimeters. And now you see how they look like. They have those little plates at the bottom. This is just to increase the area of your dial feeds, because we will glue them back in place. You've seen me drilling this hole, and in this hole I will glue simply those big dial feeds with a big area. So first of all, we need to get rid of some material which was created due to drilling. Yeah, I think that looks good. And now we will position the dial feed in, and we can have a look if the drilled hole is deep enough. For this, I'm just taking my plastic pointer and just will scratch over the boundary. And I mean, yeah, it's okay. I don't want to drill too deep into the dial because I don't want to damage it. But for me, that looks good. Or what do you think? No, I think it's okay. Just have a little look if it's good. Yeah. I don't feel any kind of difference here. So now I'm just losing a little bit of isopropanol alcohol. Be really careful, because if the dial gets in contact with it, your dial is messed up. So I'm just using it at the back side. It's just to get rid of any kind of dirt, and that the glue will stick better to both. So now let's get the glue in. Some kind of Loctite. I don't know the exact name right now. Now we have the glue in, and I mean, a bit more glue is not bad, I guess. You know, you don't want to do it twice. No, mostly you will have to do it twice. Okay, Now position it. Okay, that looks good. And we will position the second dial feet also. We did the same for the second one. Just position it. Okay, that looks good. I need to clean the tweezers afterwards because now there is glue on top. That's not really good. Okay, and so let it dry for a minute and wow. Okay, this is good. I'm impressed. I did do some testing off cam, and I must say it's not that bad. I mean, long time testing will show how long it will hold, but yeah. So now we can get it back on the movement. You have to be really, really careful. And there you see if you positioned the feet correctly, and yeah, wow. I must say they are really good positioned. So maybe I'm pretty lucky. So otherwise I would have to correct it. But this one looks good. The dial is mounted at the correct position. I must say that's more than I was hoping for. So now we can get back to the case and to the crystal. As you remember from the beginning, the case, I mean, it does not look too bad. It's a bit dirty. I mean, what I have seen, this watch is nearly 20 years old. Or it was produced in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s even. So 20 years of wearing has left its traces, and therefore I think it's not too bad if we take it apart, give it a good clean, and also polish out some of the scratches. I will not do too hard of a polishing because the back is not too scratched, and there is some kind of text on it, and I don't want to get the text off the back. Thomas, if you see this, I have some DNA of you. I can clone my own little Thomas right now. I don't like this dirt. I mean, I'm not too picky. Don't worry. But it's gross. It's gross. But to be honest, I've had much worse here on my bench. And yeah. Where I am from, there is a saying which goes like, a little bit of dirt keeps you healthy. Maybe that's totally wrong, but it's funny at least. So now we've taken everything apart. We're putting it into our second ultrasonic device. This one is not for cleaning the movement. It's just for bare cleaning of casings and other stuff before and after polishing. This is old cleaning water. I'm just using it for a first cleaning. Then I will polish the case right now, and then we will use new and fresh water to clean it. So now you can see my polyrette. It's kind of a machine just for polishing, and it's called polyrette. I'm doing different steps also, or again, this is experience-wise. First, I'm removing some dirt, which was not removed by ultrasonic. Second, there is an abrasive disc. This one is for removing the scratches, because there are some few scratches, especially at the sides. I want to remove the scratches at the sides because there is no text, and I can use the abrasive disc really good. And on the back, I want just to polish it a bit, because I don't want to remove the text at the back. This would be not good. Okay, this is my last step. I'm using a disc and some kind of polishing paste. I don't know if this is the correct term. It's called Dialux. You can see it here. Yeah, this is just to get it shiny and all clean. Yeah, I really like this part. If you're here, you mostly know the watch or the movement is finished. For me personally, I always do the movement first, and if everything worked at the movement, I'm doing the the case, and yeah, you can see here. I mean, it's okay, but look at it. Oh, it's like a mirror, right? Great, 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 great. I'm really happy. The sides you can see, there are barely scratches. And now we can move to the crystal. You see there are quite a few scratches on the crystal, but to be honest, it does not look too bad. I could install a new one, but if there is an option to keep parts original, I will always prefer it. So we will grind our way through the crystal, to say it like that. We start with a sanding paper with a grit of 320. Then we will continue with a grit of, I guess, 600. We'll give it a good sanding. And in the last sanding step, we will use a really fine paper. It's 1200 or 1200. This is the last sanding step. And always remember, the finer the paper is, the longer you need to sand. This is just a simple rule for me. And after sanding, I'm using this polish paste. It's called Polywatch. It's, I think, $8 on Amazon or wherever you want to buy it. And then just use the Polywatch. And if you have used it, just give it a good clean. I'm using this Ultrasonic Cleaner Klarberg. You see it here. It was cheap. I got it from Amazon. Again, it's experience. You know, I bought it and I was really happy. And so I decided to use it furthermore for cleaning the casings and all that stuff. And I get good results with it. So, yeah. If you have any tips or what you're using, just use it. You see, I'm also using or cleaning all the other parts of the watch. Give it 10 minutes of ultrasonic cleaning and it will look good. So, now, these are the final steps. What has to be done? We have to install our hands. First, we need, yes, you've seen it, we need to get sure that we have the correct date. And when does the date change? Yeah, at 12 p.m. So now we know it's 12 p.m. And because this watch has a second stop, we don't have to hurry, because if the crown and stem is pushed out, the watch will not run, and we will have 12 p.m. until we pull or push the crown back in. So now we just give the hands a little cleaning. No abrasive, just using a Q-tip. Simple cleaning. It will make a difference and it looks better. You can see it. Yeah. Sometimes the small things will also make a really difference. Now positioning the hand at 12 o'clock. I will just show it for the hour hand, for the minute hand, and the second hand. It's the same, so I think you can imagine what it looks like. Just get it on the right position and now press it down gently. It's a bit wrong, so I have to correct it. Yep, but now it looks good, I guess. So now we have positioned all hands, and you can see if I push back the crown in, the watch will start running. And that's a good feeling, trust me. So now you can see the case again. I mean, on the back there are some light scratches, but overall the watch does look much better. And I'm always really gentle with polishing because I don't want to round the edges. Now we have to pull off the crown. That's the same we did at the beginning where I was talking so much, I'm sorry. If the crown is off, we can position the movement or the dial and the movement and everything else. And now we get the stem back in. It's simply pushed on. And now everything should work. Let's have a look. Okay, we can change the time. That's good. Yeah, that looks good. And now if we push it in, the watch starts running. Great. So now let's get back in the fresh restored crystal. It was quite quite a lot of work. In those videos it always looks like, oh, 2 minutes of sanding. No, I guess it takes me nearly an hour to get the crystal back into this state, or maybe even longer. I don't know. Sometimes I'm listening to music. Get the ring in, and now it's the same procedure as at the beginning. The pressure of the crawl is evenly applied around the crystal. That will cause it to shrink. Now position it, and if it's in the right position, you have to check. Yeah, it looks good. Now we are releasing the crawl. While pushing downwards, the crawl will not release even if we screw. And now we have to use our thumbs. Look at this. Bam. And the crystal is on. And I must admit, it looks good. Wow. What a beautiful watch. I would call this a banger. What do you think of this watch? I'm really, really happy at this kind of, or at this state of a project. I'm always really enthusiastic about everything, because, you know, there are so many things you have to do, and there are always problems you have to overcome with, and all those stuff. And I'm just happy. I'm just happy it worked out, and it did in this case. We're now installing simply the strap on both sides. Yep, and this slides in really good. Give it a little cleaning, and we are finished. Guys, what do you think about this watch? I think it's beautiful. And now we're coming to an end of the video. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, you can leave a comment. I would really appreciate it. Or a thumbs up. You don't have to, you know, it's my hobby. I'm just doing this for fun. If you like it, just write a comment and I would really happy. And if you don't want to, it's okay. In this case, I thank you everybody for watching this video. I hope you liked it. And I wish you a wonderful day. And we see you hopefully in the next video. Bye.